Folks. So, there's a little bit of a saga brewing, and maybe I'm wrong. It's possible that I'm wrong when I say this, but there's potentially been a saga going on recently brewing. Ben Burgess went on the Joe Rogan program, sometime last week, I guess. We got Black Cherry Polar here accompanying us on this episode. So Ben Burgess went on the Joe Rogan Experience program, said some very interesting things. I did not like them, so I made some criticisms of those appearances on the Joe Rogan show. Now, again, I don't want to come out of here and say that I hate Ben Burgess. I don't like some people in my audience do not like Ben Burgess. I understand that. I liked Ben Burgess for a while. So I want to put myself in a position where I want to try to criticize him, and I hope that he takes the criticism in a good way, and I want him to change his position. I don't want people to have really bad opinions on stuff like this. So yesterday he begun, I guess, what I am interpreting to be another cringe tour, and I say that with all due respect. He went on the This Is Revolution podcast. And he was asked about Andy No. And I've actually got the way that they framed the question here, that I want to play this part first because it's in chronological order. But Ben Burgess's microphone broke, and so, I couldn't put it all in one clip. But he was asked about his opinion on Andy No, and I talked about this yesterday. I talked about what he said about Andy No on the Joe Rogan show. And I thought it was really bad. I thought he was engaging in right-wing propaganda, right-wing talking points. And it's just like, I don't know why. Like, again, you can represent the left and just not talk about Andy No, let alone talk about Andy No positively. Like, there's no reason to engage in this kind of stuff. And the only thing it does is bash the left, and all it does is enable and embolden far-right violence. Because right-wing people, again, I got a lot of, there's a lot of right-wingers that stalk my show, let's be real, and a lot of them commented on the video and were saying that, like, oh, see, even lefties know that Antifa's crazy and should be killed, right? So I'm just saying, right, like, and again, you can say that, like, Ben Burgess isn't responsible for that, and whatever, but again, Andy No, you should not be enabling him, you should not be defending him. In my opinion, even if you don't like Antifa, you should just stay out of it. That's my opinion. If you consider yourself a left-winger and you might want to, have the impulse to defend Andy No from Antifa because you don't like Antifa, I recommend not opening your mouth. That's my recommendation. But anyway, he was asked about this on the This Is Revolution podcast, and I want to play this part first because, again, I think the way that the question was framed was really good from the hosts here, and then we're going to get into his answer, and then the saga continues. So let me, we'll go into that.
Not everybody can be aware of everything going on, and that's kind of why I brought up earlier of, like, how is there some type of accountability between, we don't have a huge left organizing anything, but at the end of the day, there still are people doing the work on the ground, and I guess, like, how do we, like, the talking heads in camera, make sure that we're not discrediting some of the things that was happening, because in my opinion, I think, like, Andy No got everything he deserved. And the danger he posed to other people, like, is, he fucked around and found out.
So I just want to say, I agree with Marcus on this one. Fuck Andy No. All my homies hate Andy No. But, the response here from Ben Burgess, a classic.
Very emotionally satisfying thing to say. I don't think it really makes sense.
Okay, so his microphone breaks. I don't know what happened. It sounded like it just, like, started melting live on stream. But so the only words that were discernible here was that it's an emotionally satisfying thing to say, but it doesn't make sense. Now, I will respond to that with saying both it is emotionally satisfying and it does make sense. But I'll get into that a little bit later after having microphone troubles. His answer here is about the 2-minute clip, and I want to get into it because he goes into quite a few different things that I feel like are very worth disseminating here.
So before Deep State Rogan got me, I was going to say, so I'd really recommend, two things. One, so, like you could read it in my, the Antifa, the Pathologist Powerlessness chapter in my book that we were talking about in the interview, where I go into a lot of these details about the doxing claims and stuff like that. I'd also really recommend an article that Nathan Robinson wrote at the time for Current Affairs called Discipline Strategy. And
so, I mean, okay, like, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I'm just going to pick apart this a little bit because I think it's funny, and I'm just going to comment on it. I love how the first 30 seconds of his answer is like promoting articles in a book he wrote. Like, I'm just saying, like, I just think that's I think that's a little funny, a little comical, so I'm just pointing it out. In my opinion, I feel like Ben Burgess is taking an IDW turn. That's my position. That's what I want. I don't necessarily think that makes him a bad person. I want to believe that Ben Burgess is genuinely ignorant. That's what I want to believe, and so that's that universe that I'm living in currently. He is making that a little bit difficult, but again, he did come on my show to discuss his opinions on January 6th. So if I can get him on the show again, or at least get someone else to give him more pushback, that's beneficial because I think that this is bad for the left. But anyway, so again, now after that he's promoted his book and Nathan Robinson's articles,
morality, but aside from like some of the weeds questions, I don't think that the people who beat up Andy represent a sort of movement on the ground that we want to be like backing, repping, or not undermining. I think they represent the absolutely worst of LARPing middle class self-indulgence. And
so I'm going to pause it here because this is my first problem. My first problem with this, and again, when he was on the Joe Rogan show, he was talking about anti-fascism in general. He was talking about Antifa in general. He was talking about street movements and how useless they are. And so in this specific instance, he does specify that he's referring to the people that, were in the area with Andy Ngo whenever he was allegedly assaulted. And so a way that he could get out of this is by saying I wasn't talking about all anti-fascists, I was talking about just those people. That's fine, but I've also heard Ben Burgess talk about anti-fascists with this kind of same way of talking down to them before, and that's my problem. The way that he describes anti-fascists as being LARPy middle-class self-indulgence. Now, first of all, let's go with a LARPy. I mean, okay, LARPy, they are literally live, in action. Are they role-playing? I mean, not necessarily, because people are getting killed. Again, one of the things I want to talk about, and I mentioned this in my critique of his appearance on Joe Rogan, is that just this last weekend, a Portland mass shooter killed one person, a 60-year-old woman, and injured 4 others. And they were inspired by Andy Ngo to hate the left and hate Antifa. And so, again, I want to talk about the climate of context here. So let's assume, right? Ben Burgess doesn't hate Antifa. He's just talking about these people that hit Andy Ngo and made him cry like a little baby. Okay, let's assume that. Again, we are now in this area, this climate, where just a couple of days before that, on his Joe Rogan show, Andy Ngo inspired another mass shooter, right? So it's just like, why are you taking Andy Ngo's side on anything at this moment in history? It's weird. And second of all, again, the way Andy Ngo operates is he pretends that all anti-fascists are evil thugs, that they're constantly roaming the streets trying to beat people down, right? He takes a small example of things getting violent most of the time, and I have experience with this because I have been targeted by this guy. Last year, when I was filming and documenting protests in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, Andy Ngo and his cringe crew downloaded and edited my clips out of context to make it look like Antifa was attacking people in their homes, when in reality, that never happened. It was just like someone coming out of their house and yelling at someone and people just kind of yelling at them back and walking away. But he clipped 3 seconds out of it and said Antifa's raiding people's houses houses, right? And again, I got thousands and thousands of people doxing me, harassing me, and like trying to like, threaten me with death threats online, saying that I was attacking people's houses. First of all, I wasn't even involved, right? But again, this is how these things happen. So Andy spreads these lies, spreads this violent rhetoric, and and again, just a week ago, he inspired someone to kill a person and shoot 4 others. So again, my problem with this is Ben Burgess is playing into that narrative. He's playing into the narrative that, oh, the people attack Andy or Antifa, and Antifa's violent thugs, and they're killing Americans, and they're raiding their houses. And this is such an inappropriate context. And the reason why I am so offended to this, about this, is because, again, I have been the victim of violence, death threats, and harassment, and doxing, and stalking from Andy from his people, right? And again, so I know the exact way that all of this functions. I know how this affects people on the ground. I know how this affects people online. Ben Burgess, I guarantee you, has never been personally affected by Andy I would be shocked if Ben Burgess has ever been to a violent protest with riot cops. Now, again, if he has, I would love to talk about that, because I would love to have that conversation. But again, I have run away from riot cops. I have been involved in areas where tear gas has been used, right? I've been into these kind of protest scenarios multiple times in multiple different cities. And so I know the way that these things work a lot better than Ben Burgess. And so again, you can even make the claim that sometimes when Antifa gets violent, it's bad and they fuck up. I agree. Sometimes, I'm not going to say that every anti-fascist is great no matter what. Sometimes people fuck around, they get too in the moment, they end up making a mistake. That has no bearing on the thousands and the thousands and the thousands and the thousands and thousands of anti-fascist activists that don't do that don't make mistakes. And again, one of the most important things to understand about anti-fascism is most of the time when these activists are doing things outside of protesting, what they're doing is they're doing mutual aid work, community organizing. They are, ensuring people are safe, people have access to food, shelter, and so forth. Most of the time, anti-fascists are not just like walking around patrolling the neighborhoods in Black Bloc. When there's not like heavy protest activity, when there's not heavy right-wing presence, most anti-fascist activists are working at soup kitchens, trying to help people. Most anti-fascists are also not middle class. Most anti-fascists are poor. A lot of anti-fascists, especially in major cities like Portland, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, are homeless, right? So to pretend like these people are like these uppity rich kids who like are trust fund babies, but they're just pretending to like, it's just so obnoxious, and it plays into these right-wing narratives, and it's just wrong. It's wrong. And again, let's just assume you don't like Antifa for whatever reason. If you consider yourself a leftist, the best thing you should do is just stay out of it, not project your opinion in there, especially the week of a deadly mass shooting from someone that Andy inspired personally. So again, I just want to stop it there for a second, and now let's keep going.
And the kind of thing that actively interferes with the possibility of a meaningful working class organization. I think that what I said about Andy in the book, and again, when the subject came up with Rogan, is I said I didn't like him. I said I think he's I don't think he's an honest journalist, and that I thoroughly... Again,
one of the problems with this is Ben Burgess is pretending that Andy is a journalist, dishonest or honest, right? This is not like, like that guy in the White House press briefings from Fox News who always like tries to make these fun Saki bomb moments, okay? Andy works with neo-Nazi organizations. He has provided kill lists to groups such as Atomwaffen. Atomwaffen I have personal experience with because they swatted me and almost killed me. So I'm very, very familiar with these kinds of people. And again, has been involved with the Proud Boys, Patriot Fund, Patriot Prayer. He has given money and resources to Proud Boys, given names, doxes. He posts people's public information online all the time. This is not a journalist that has a bad opinion. This isn't like someone who's got like a bad take on a YouTube comment section. This is someone who works with neo-Nazi paramilitary forces in the United States and has, again, inspired people to get shot, including a week ago. Like, this is not like ancient history. This happened last weekend. Someone in Portland was inspired by Andy followed these people to know where they were from Andy Twitter posts, and then killed someone and shot 4 other people. Again, this is a very big problem, and to just present it as if it doesn't matter, and if it's like to present Antifa as the enemy here is just, it's grotesque. And so I
really disagree with his worldview, but I also think it's incredibly dangerous and stupid for anybody on the left to say it's fine to vigilantes to beat up writers if we've decided that they're a dangerous propagandist. Or
So normally I would agree with Ben Burgess. I wouldn't say attack writers if they write something stupid. But the thing is, this doesn't apply to Andy Ngo. Andy Ngo is not a writer. He's not a journalist. Again, he is a serial doxer, and what his role is to basically spy on anti-fascists, dox them, harass them, and send right-wing paramilitary forces to kill them. And again, it just happened a week ago. This is not like ancient history. This is not something that happened a long time ago. This is not something that's uncommon. It just happened a week ago. So again, if this guy is just like someone who had a bad take on Twitter, right? Like, yeah, sure, don't beat them up. Why would you, right? Don't waste your time. But luckily, Andy Ngo is not that person. And so this just, again, shows that Ben Burgess is not educated on what's going on. He doesn't know anyone who's been affected by Andy Ngo or his serial harassment campaigns. He is just not familiar. And so that's why I want to push him. I want him to watch this. I want him to see my criticism in this Twitter thread, and we'll get to that later, because I think he's genuinely just severely ignorant, and his set of facts that he's basing his version of the universe on is wrong, and it's severely distorted by right-wing people. But let's keep going.
You're not a real journalist. That's setting the kind of precedent that is not going to go well for us.
So again, the precedent argument. Now, so you're saying right-wingers should be allowed to kill anyone. That's not setting any precedents. That's fine, right? I mean, I guess I'm assuming Ben Burgess would say that's not fine, right? But he's like again, anti-fascism is defensive in nature, right? Anti-fascists are not getting guns and going to right-wingers' houses and shooting them in the head. Right-wingers have done that to left-wingers. The police have done that to left-wingers, but left-wingers have never done that to anyone else, right? So again, to pretend like someone hitting someone in a street fight in a defensive nature is setting a precedent that's going to allow right wingers to if the left winger didn't punch Richard Spencer, then no one in the right wing would ever shoot anyone else with a gun. Like, again, that's not how the real world works. Right wingers have killed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people over the last several years in this country, and if you count police in that, the statistic grows even more. Again, so this isn't like, I just don't understand the idea that you can act in self-defense, because if you do, then it could be misconstrued and could set a precedent. This isn't like a law scenario. We're not like legal scholars, right? The right wing has been killing people and trying to exterminate people for decades, and the violence is reaching a boiling point. So nothing a left winger does is going to like move the Overton window to now the right wingers will bring grenades to like I don't understand this argument. It makes no sense. But again, Ben Burgess doesn't go to protests. He doesn't go to on the ground demonstrations. He doesn't know people that have been affected by this, and that's why he has these frankly out of touch opinions.
I think to put it mildly. So I would very much, I think that's setting a precedent that's like frankly suicidal if you take seriously the idea that we could grow in importance and have any kind of influence in the world.
He claimed, again, defending yourself from right-wing violence is suicidal. If you're suicidal, you would just let the right-wingers kill you, right? Like, I mean, again, but I really think Ben Burgess is just severely uneducated on actual activist street movements that aren't related to electoral politics. Like, I get it. You could say electoral politics or union organizing is more important than street activism and protesting and community defense and mutual aid. You can have that opinion, but why go out of your way to harass these people? It's very, very strange.
It would only fail to be so if you think that we're never going to be important enough to bother repressing.
I mean, my position on violence is that
So right here, the hosts just say like they agree with self-defense, and the other host previously said that they view this as a self-defense scenario because they just know the facts of the situation. And then they end the show. I wish they would have given them more pushback, but I understand that they were hitting a time issue here. I personally would have wished that they would have brought this up earlier before they hit the end of the time, but whatever, that's fine. I'm not here to shit on This Is Revolution. I've enjoyed some of their other shows, so I'm not here to, I want to say that, as far as I'm concerned, I've seen a couple of their shows. They do a good job, and I'm glad that they asked this question because it allowed me to know more about what Ben Burgess is thinking here. And so I wrote a Twitter thread about this, saying, Once again, anti-fascist activists are one of the most important groups of people on the ground. They provide crucial research into right-wing activities and plans to keep people safe. One of the things that's very important about what Antifa does, anti-fascist researchers know where right-wingers are going to go, and they can, like, you know, go to those areas and tell, let's say, people that are homeless and in the area to get the fuck out, because oftentimes you'll see right-wingers go to these places and they have beaten, like, Proud Boys are on tape beating the shit out of homeless people in New York City several times. They've done so in Washington. They've done so in other cities in the Pacific Northwest, right? So that, like, that's just one example. But again, knowing where these people are going is extremely, extremely important. But you know, they organize medics and equipment to people on the ground who need them, especially during protests or when right-wing freaks storm random cities and engage in violence with other people. We saw this in 2020. As well is that there were medics, like the one example that I saw that was very emblematic of this was in Washington. I believe it was in Seattle. Police shot a tear gas grenade at someone's chest and killed them. Their heart stopped. It stopped their heart. They were dead. So the police killed someone with a tear gas canister, and a street medic, an anti-fascist street medic, got them and performed medical activities on them, as CPR or whatever, and brought them back to life, resuscitated them. Without those medics, without the anti-fascist research and training and community organizing, that person would have been killed by police. So again, that's just one example. This happens all the time, especially happened many, many times throughout the 2020 uprising. And so it's extremely important to understand that, like, anti-fascists are an extremely, like, if you are going outside to engage in a political action, anti-fascists are your friends, unless you're a Nazi. Let's just be honest here. Let's just be real. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, 9,909, whatever. Like, you know, anti-fascists are going to be your friends, unless you're a Nazi. If you're a Nazi, then, okay, of course you'd be against anti-fascists. But if you're not a Nazi, I have no reason why you'd be, I have no idea why you'd be engaging in this kind of stuff. Anti-fascists being smeared because Ben doesn't like a few people acting in self-defense from someone who literally works with neo-Nazi organizations is profoundly offensive to actual on-the-ground activists and researchers and medics and many more. I find it silly that people who don't or won't engage in real-world activism feel that they can or should talk down to people who risk their lives and die for the values of leftism. That's the other thing as well. Like, I don't understand why Ben Burgess is here to, like, play, like, Monday morning quarterback or something about a fight that he is not involved in. Like, if he wants to be a fight for in the electoral left and the, you know, union organizing, and that's great, just don't comment on left-wing street activism. You, like, whoops. There's no reason for you to disparage left-wing activists in other sectors. Like, it's just, there's no reason to do so. It's a pointless activity to engage in, and it makes you look out of touch, right? So, and that's why I think, like, has Ben Burgess ever been involved in activists like this, in activism like this? I don't know. Like, if he's purely just a writer, a philosopher, and wants to write books and support people on his show that engage in union or electoral, that's fine. That's great for that field, sure. But, like, you know, has he ever ran from riot police? Has he ever been involved in where tear gas has been used? Has he ever been punched by a fascist? Has he ever been in these areas where he see, like, you know, where people's teeth are being knocked down in front of them? Because I have, and it's fucking horrifying to see these people that do this kind of stuff, right? And so, like, that's why I think he's just so out of touch. It's ridiculous. I know I'm talking really fast. I got a lot of coffee here going on, and I'm just on a roll. Yes, by the way, someone commented on this earlier. Yes, this is an elephant, and yes, that's my second elephant of coffee. And I reiterate here that Andy No killed someone last weekend. And so Ben Burgess saw this thread, and he replied to a reply. And so, and I replied to him. So we actually have, we've made contact, folks. This is like the little ending section here. We've made contact. Contact has been established. So, okay. Ben Burgess replied to someone who replied to someone, I don't know. So there's so many layers here, but anyway. So I made this thread 14 hours ago. Ben Burgess, at some point, you know, I saw this when I woke up. At some point in between me going to sleep and me waking up, Ben Burgess followed me. So hello, Ben Burgess. Thank you for the follow. You know, I would be happy if you weren't, you know, trashing Antifa and defending Andy No about that. But so he followed me. He didn't reply to me. I didn't get any messages or anything. And then he replied to someone who replied, like, so some other people were having like a conversation. So by this, I can guarantee you that Ben Burgess read everything. But so he's talking to other people, talking about other. So he replies to some like really like it's just weird. Like so he's clearly reading every reply, and he decides to chime in here. My primary critique of anti-fascists is that their use of political vigilantism is indefensible. I don't like again the term political vigilantism, like as if like Antifa is like rolling around like bounty hunters and like gunning people down in their living room or something. That's not happening, right? This is all stuff like that's happening mostly in like 99.999% of the time in self-defense, in the moment, in street protest, and left-wingers don't kill anyone, but right-wingers kill everyone, right? When's the last time Antifa has killed someone? I'm waiting, right? Though you could give me 17,000 examples of right-wingers killing people just in the last, like, just this year alone, and it's only, like, it's about to be March, right? So that's weird. Like, it's not, like, he's both sidesing something that's not a both sides scenario. I argued in the book of a version of Antifa that didn't do that might serve a useful role. And again, so that's just strange. And I don't think I've ever said more than a few words about the 1-6 rioters without calling them disgusting and horrifying. That's fair. That's fair. I just don't think anyone who thinks that realistically threatened the normal... Okay, so he's talking about 1-6 there. Really strange. But anyway, so I replied to this. And again, I just want to formally invite Ben Burgess on the show, and I want people to tell him that I've invited him on the show. One, don't judge all anti-fascists by the actions of a few. You could think some people go way too far. They do sometimes without painting a broad brush. That's something very important. You can say, oh, someone in this instance made a tactical mistake. They had the wrong person. They didn't know what they were doing. They got a little, like, that's fine. Very rarely, but sometimes, yes, anti-fascists will fuck up. Everyone fucks up. Everyone makes mistakes, right? There's no reason to disparage Antifa or anti-fascism in general, or saying all non-union or non-electoral street movements are bad. And that's the kind of vibe that Ben Burgess gives off. So he's painting with a broad brush based on the actions of a few. And it's strange. Most of the time, this political vigilantism is defensive and then videoed out of context by bad actors, such as Andy No. Downplaying those involvement in neo-Nazi groups is dangerous no matter what. Now, again, it's possible Ben Burgess just doesn't know that Andy No isn't related to the... So I hope that I'm giving him information here, and I hope he changes his opinion. You could definitely benefit from talking to more on-the-ground activists. So that's what I said, and Ben Burgess has yet to reply to me. But again, I don't like this heel turn, in my opinion. I view this as an IDW-adjacent heel turn. He's going the way of Sam Harris. He's going the way of, other people in that variety, and I don't like it, and so I'm here to criticize that. And again, if Ben Burgess wants to come on the show and we can agree to disagree, that's fine, but he's getting a couple of things just factually wrong, and I hope that if the facts are cleared up on the matter, that he would change his opinion, and that's why I want to push him in that direction. But either way, he is very, 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 very wrong here, I want to point it out. So